Are we friends? Are we lovers? Let's not look back on the things.
Hello, my name is Kim Wilson, and you're watching Kim Wilson TV. My channel is dedicated to helping victims of narcissistic abuse escape the toxic and horrendous situation that you're in right now, and to help you survive and thrive beyond your escape from this horrible situation. Now, narcissistic personality disorder is a very grave form of mental illness, so you have to remember at all times you are dealing with someone who is seriously ill, and your life, your well-being, your safety, your finances, your family, your children, your dog, your hobbies, your interests, all of it is in grave danger at all times, because the narcissist, unable to feel human emotion or to experience life as normal people do, knows no boundaries. Nothing is off limits to them. So safety first. We're going to look at all kinds of ways to keep yourself safe while you're transitioning out of that situation. I'm not really interested in explaining, all the crazy making, chaotic insanity that's going on in narcissist's head, and then teaching you coping skills. Coping is not living. Coping is just that. It's a continuance of your suffering, but now you learned how to handle it a little bit better. That's not what I'm interested in doing here. I want to be very frank and very honest. I need to tell you that it's never getting any better, and you need to get out for yourself, for your family, for your well-being. You need to get out. The absolute best case scenario here is that you leave, but you need to do that in the safest way possible. And safety first. That's going to be our motto as we plan your exit strategy together.
Along with a dime, with the drop of a dime. Why do I even try?
Sadly, so many victims of narcissistic abuse ask, does my narc love me? Even years after the fact, when people have escaped and have gone on to, fulfill their dreams and live their life, they look back in retrospect and ask, did the narc love me? Now, let's consider again, narcissistic personality disorder is a serious form of mental illness that causes the sufferer of this condition to be completely emotionally detached. So no, they are not capable of love as you or I or other healthy, well-adjusted individuals understand love. They're just not capable of it. Maybe they would have wanted to love you. Maybe they even tried. But the reality is they simply don't have the emotional capacity to love. So every time you ask this question, once you've decided that you need to escape and once you are free, why would you keep putting your head back in that shit pile? That's all it is. It's a toxic cesspool of shit. Who cares if he loved you? He treated you horribly. He had weeks, years, decades maybe to prove that he loved you, and he never did. You have to understand that a narcissist is gravely ill, and the only way they feel whole is if they're hurting you. Does that sound like love to you? That is certainly not love. And you need to stop projecting yourself back into that cesspool where you're asking, does he love me? The hard, cold fact of this situation is no. No, he simply didn't love you. He has no capacity to love you. You are narcissistic supply. The thing that has replaced you, the person that has replaced you, is narcissistic supply. He doesn't love them either. And 50 down the road, he's not loving any of them. He's sick, and everyone in his life is simply supply. A question really commonly asked by narcissistic abuse victims and abuse survivors is, does my narc miss me, or will my narc miss me in the future? Now, we need to really get to the cold facts of this. Your narc is void human emotion. We've established that they do not love you, nor do they have the capacity to love you. So the chances of them missing you is very, very slim. Now, you were probably replaced immediately. In fact, the second your narc started to suspect that you had an exit strategy in place, they would have already bait and hook, with new narcissistic supply. Now, it's probably not new supply. They probably went to their narc harem, where they just keep recycling and regurgitating, the same old supply. It's completely dead supply to them. It doesn't feed them at all because, of course, they're low-level secondary supply. They're not the primary supply that you were, so certainly they're not getting that buzz, from it. But in a pinch, they'll go to that secondary supply. So, no, your narc doesn't miss you. He's already moved on. He'd moved on before you moved on. And that's great. Now, a lot of people ask the question, does my narc miss me? And I guess my answer to that question is another question. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit if your narc misses you? This is someone who has treated you with total emotional abandonment, who has disrespected you, disregarded you, has treated you in the most horrendous way. So why are we now projecting our mind to this really, really toxic place where we're thinking more about them than we are ourselves? We should be looking at our own deep emotions and how we are feeling right now. Mentally ill miss us. That's not our problem. For me and a lot of victims of narcissistic abuse, when starting to really understand that the relationship has to end, I think it's in our human nature to start to try and fix the relationship. We believe that a relationship is something of value and something to save, something we've invested in, and something we don't want to see just dissipate. Now, part of my real awakening and part of what really helped me to get free was a realization that I was not in a relationship. Now, when you consider the dimensions of a relationship, that's not what's happening at all with your narc. So I really had to internalize the fact that there was no relationship. I was a hostage. I was a captive. I was not in a relationship. Therefore, there was no relationship to lose or to let go of. And once I really came to terms with that, I think it made it a lot easier to just say, enough is enough. It's now time to plan my exit strategy. I think we really have to look at this for what it is, and we have to call it what it is. What you have been in is not a relationship. You have been a captive in a very abusive, toxic, vile situation. You have been emotionally discarded and abandoned. You have been hoovered over and over again. Now, if you're like most victims or survivors, you very likely return to that toxic environment. On average, they say 7 times. That's how frequently we get hooked in. You're now in a situation where you really need to break free, and we're going to explore all of that. But you need to understand during this transitioning period, as you're trying to pull yourself back in to get free, your narc is very likely going to sense this or have a premonition about this because their head's constantly going there, and they're going to start their hoovering techniques again. And this is a process where now they just give you enough bait to hook you back in. Don't take the bait. You don't need to go back over and over again, because trust me, every time you go back, you're going to be gravely hurt, gravely disappointed. Your life is going to be in worse shambles than it is this time. So there's no need to keep going back, because in the end, the same result is going to occur, because the narc is, that's all they're after. This is not about love. This is not about them wanting a relationship with you. This is about you are the primary source of supply, which means you offer the biggest amount of supply, and they just don't want that supply to go at any cost. So they're not trying to renew a relationship with you. They're just trying to bait and hook you back in for more abuse. Now, if you're still in that really crazy manic place of confusion and disorientation and emotional harm, you're probably struggling to see how bright the future is going to be beyond this. Now, I will tell you, I love my narc very much. I truly believe that I could love my narc well. I believe that if I could just provide enough soul-sucking supply, that everything was going to be okay. Now, in retrospect, now that I'm free and I'm happy, I have to ask myself, why? Stockholm syndrome, brainwashing, constant manipulation. This is what the narc does to us. So you have to understand that this is really, really a temporary situation that you're in, and you're going to get free from this. And you're going to go on to be a much bigger, better human being. You're going to have learned a lot. You're going to have explored your own self, and you are going to be a person ready for real love. And that's how I feel right now, and that's how you're going to feel too. Trust me, sister, you're getting out of this. This narc is a sick, depraved, mentally ill, fucked up freak, and they're horribly destructive and horribly abusive, and this has nothing to do with you. Okay, you're a good person. That's why they targeted you. You're a wonderful, good person, and you provided a tremendous amount of supply for them. And they abuse that and they shit on that. And that's how you ended up in that relationship. So don't worry. You're lots of systems and methods that you can put into place to ensure your safe departure. Be brave. Everything's going to be okay. And trust me, being free from the narc is so much better than it was bad being with him. The person you thought you loved doesn't actually exist. They are an empty shell of a human being that is consumed by self hatred, self loathing, and shame. And to feel good, they have to inflict pain on other people. That's actually how their souls are fed. You don't deserve this. You don't need this. And we need to get you free from this in a very safe, stealth, quiet, calm sort of way. And I assure you, when you get free from this horrible piece of shit. Now, in my situation, yes, I was brutalized. Yes, I was tortured for 5 years. But what I end up walking away with is this tremendous sense of self and 10 years of YouTube videos and more information than I ever wanted about narcissism. But there's always a silver lining. There's always, that bucket of gold at the end of the rainbow. And you have to understand that what you've been through, nothing happens by accident. Everything happens for a reason. And for some reason, you were chosen to become enlightened about this horrendous mental health condition that really affects so many people.